Strewn throughout this beautiful and brutal, gruesome and glorious experience that is life on this earth, there are parcels and morsels of bits of pieces of things that we need to attend to. Amidst good, there is bad. Amidst the loyalty, there is war. Amidst nature's beauty, there is tremendous disasters. You may, for instance, be honoring our nation this weekend, holding barbecues, attending parades, celebrating this great nation of ours. And you might feel a tinge of, what might that be? Even despair for the world around you, or for the memory of the team you knew while you were serving, or perhaps fear for your children's lives. What they may be, what with all the news that's constantly swirling our way. And you may feel pride while you feel fear. And as you lounge back with a brat or stand at attention during the memorial service, you may feel a little tired and weary and wonder what the future holds. The rhetoric today is one of pride, and yet growing within you there's an uneasiness, a concern, a recognition that pride is not for things left undone. Hope is what remains for the future, what accompanies our dreams until they're finished. It stays with us over time, never forever, never identical. Hope reconstructs itself over time, ever changing, marching onward. God's truth is marching on. Mark this: the future contains a grace that is alive, afoot, and unfinished. Unfinished grace, for one thing, meets us in encouragement of the peace of the wild things, the undone things. For a time, as Wendell Berry said, I rest in the grace of the world and am free. You probably guessed you'd be hearing from Katherine Lee Bates this weekend, so you're not surprised. She's another one who rested in the grace of the world atop those purple mountain majesties above the fruited plains. She's another who met grace amidst the spacious skies and the amber waves of grain, and was free. Oh, beautiful, she says, she proclaims, she sings of this magnificent country, America the beautiful. But as you come to listen to her song when we sing it afterwards, and it's later, harder to remember verses, you might realize that this hymn, this beautiful hymn, this national hymn, is not a celebration of a country finished and molded, but rather a prayer for a nation that might be. It frames, it gives song to unfinished grace. I'm going to ask you in your mind's eye to take a look at Ms. Bates. She's a postured woman with her hair tightly in a knot behind her head, her wire-rimmed glasses down on her nose, the stern, ponderous look on her face. The quintessential woman from New England. She was born in Falmouth, Massachusetts, the daughter of a congregational minister, and her family moved to Wellesley, Massachusetts upon her father's death, and she went to that newly founded Wellesley College for Women. She became an English teacher at various high schools and a writer of poetry and children's books, too. I'm sure you'd been wondering who had so craftily created the character of Mrs. Claus. She ultimately returned to Wellesley College to become an instructor, and then associate, and then professor, and then dean of the English department there. As one so prominently prolific is wont to do, in the summer of 1893, Ms. Bates had the good chance to teach a summer course at Colorado College in Colorado Springs in Colorado State, and made a full cross-country voyage of her travels. She stopped off in Chicago to visit the Columbian World Exposition, where the white, you might even say alabaster city, gleamed, passed through the amber grains of Kansas, and at the end of the summer climbed with the help of a carriage and some horses and some mules to the top of Pikes Peak at the height of the majestic Rocky Mountains, amidst those spacious skies. It was then and there, Miss Bates said, as I was looking out over the sea-like expanse of fertile country spreading away so far from those ample skies, that the opening line of the hymn floated into my mind. She rested in the grace of the world and was free. Free from what? What could this woman, this well-educated, well-versed, well-traveled woman need to free herself from? In a nation who presumes her hymn is a celebration, God did shed God's grace on thee, we don't see her wanting. It's done. It's finished. It's past, and she should be glad to be so privileged. But in a nation that sees her hymn as the prayer, as the audacious prayer that it is, we must honestly and carefully consider what it would mean if we put as much trust and celebration in its prayer as we do in its melody. For she proclaims an unfinished grace, unfinished, active, afoot. My friends, this is an anthem whose third stanza originally read, America, America, God shed his grace on thee till selfish gain no longer stain the banner of the free. And yes, you are right in acknowledging that the verb originally means it doesn't anymore, and you would be right to sing the hymn in your mind until you finally recall the amended stanza, America, America, may God thy gold refine till all success be nobleness and every gain divine. And while a century stands between her world and ours, you can't help but question, can you, with curiosity and wonder what it would mean if our nation's successes only came from noble gains. Would we achieve them? What makes success noble? Is it all noble? Can it be noble? Certainly, this was not a nobility in the aristocratic sense with the tuxes and the tails, where our gold is refined until it can no longer be touched by most hands and is trusted, or at least only held by, the hands of a few. For you can't imagine, can you, where such a situation could be considered noble? That is, noble in the ethical and magnificent, decent, moral sense that our heroes proved in liberating strife, the ones whose countries and whose neighbors matter more than themselves, where mercy is loved more than life. Mercy loved more than life. In a nation that sees her hymn as a prayer, the audacious prayer that it is, we must recognize the hope that our flaws be mended, that our good and our goals be crowned with brotherhood, with sisterhood, with the family values that recognize all as interconnected and interdependent members of the human family, God's family, born of the same dust and destined to the same end. Till all success is nobleness, every gain divine. That is, life is opened, freedom is real, and we are cautioned to have a little bit of humility with what we think we know. If we have the audacity to sing this hymn, and we do, then we, as members of this nation, this good brotherhood, sisterhood, familyhood, we must consider the implications of exactly what it is that we know we're singing. And when that song's final note is sung, speaking of unfinished grace, we know we still have work to do. Katherine Lee Bates became beloved for her prayer for a fuller nation, a kinder nation, a benevolent nation. The vision, the grace in which she rested for but a moment, unfinished in her lifetime amongst a war in Cuba and yet another around the world, locked up in the wealth of the Gilded Age and chained by the fearful rhetoric of immigration during her life. It sounds like a distant time, and yet a familiar time. To us at this picnic or memorial service or parade on our extra day off in this upcoming work week. History repeats itself, we're wont to say. And some of us may not be here to witness all of these changes, all of this unfinished grace, but it's coming. It's coming. How? The future contains a grace that is afoot and active and unfinished. Unfinished grace that meets us in the encouragement, the peace of the wild things. Through the heroes proved in liberating strife and for their people. For you cannot have a country without its people who love mercy more than life. So for a time, let us rest in the grace of this world and be free. Let us sing this audacious prayer for the hope that it really is. Amen.